what I've actually also seen is a lot of companies who have a lot of advanced um, information that is collected very expediently through, for example, smart metering and also through the data manipulation on computer, but they don't understand what the information is saying, which is a shame.
Hello everyone. Welcome to the Actionable ESG Talks Series brought to you by AKFI, the Actionable Knowledge Foundational Institute, the world's first nonprofit industry consortium committed to bridging the gap between ESG sustainability and digital transformation. My name is Isabella. I'm the co-host here with Manuel, our another co-host, and today's guest, Kit. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for
Thank you.
inviting me today.
It's a pleasure to have you. And in this talk series, thanks to this talk series, we get to connect with great minds from the world to discuss the current state and the future state of ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation. So welcome you, Kit, again for taking the time. Just let our audience to know a bit about your background. Kit, it's how to say your last name properly. I hate to mispronounce things, so I want to confirm every time. Kit
Oung.
Oung.
Yes.
Wow. Oh, very zen, like the Zen meditation. Oh, remember? I love
Well,
that.
it's first time
Give me a
I've been
peace of
told
mind,
about that.
right? Oh, it gives me a peace of mind immediately when I say that. So Kit Oung is a practitioner of energy and resource efficiency, as well as a global consultant, trainer, and the author on the topics of energy and resource sustainability, operational excellency, and triple bottom line. And you just came back from your traveling, right? From
Yes.
Africa. So I guess that's part of your mission as a global consultant trainer. You've been to the countries I see here, including India, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, just to name a few, and to consult them on the good governance in energy and environment and health and safety. You also had a book. Is it from recently or?
Yep, it was published in March.
March
This
2022.
year. Yeah.
Wow. I have
Two
to
authors,
look at
two
it.
authors. I'm sorry for interjecting, but two authors on the same show, two recent published authors in the same show. We'll talk about it a little bit later. Please continue,
Yes.
Isabella.
Yes. So you published a book. Kit published a book in, just to mention it, what, March, right? March 2022. So the title is People, Planet, and Profit.
Yep.
That's it.
Very quaint name.
People, Planet, and Profit focuses on the optimization of sustainability, triple bottom lines. That's your triple bottom lines. People, planet, and profit.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay. So what's your thoughts, Kit? Especially after you write this book and with all your years of experience, what's your thought on current trends, situations with sustainability, ESG, and the digital wave, digital transformation in energy, maybe particularly?
Yeah, I think in my experience, what I tend to see is that there are actually a lot of companies who are wanting to do something to reduce its consumption, but they actually don't know how. And what a lot of companies do is actually look outwards, trying to see what are the tools and what are the fads that is available in industry to actually help them consume less. Whereas in my personal experience, a lot of the answers and a lot of the resistance to change and even to adopt ideas to use less is actually inside the company itself. And this is why I kind of wrote the book, People, Planet, and Profits, trying to showcase how companies using 10 very simple tools can overcome its leadership barriers, its managerial barriers, and some of the technical knowledge to unlock this inherent resistance and then accelerate their environment performance, their energy and resource productivity. And similarly, at the same time, through a lot of the research, I found that the same tools that unlock resource efficiency also unlocks profitability, and the same tools is also applicable for working on the social welfare, the employee welfare issues in the organization as well.
So you're saying instead of seeking around, busy looking outside, and there's actually plenty of tools and assets that they can leverage to start from within. Such a Zen philosophy. That just sounds like Zen. Your philosophy is seek from within, right? Instead of look from the outside.
Funny thing is, what I actually wrote about the book is actually not new. It's just unfamiliar with a lot of the instinct of organizations. In fact, when I wrote the book, I actually wrote and communicate with a lot of business school professors, one of which is Robert Kaplan in Harvard. And a lot of what he teaches right from the 1970s is very, very compatible with the 10 tools that I talk about. And yeah, so I would say it's not new. It's just something that many people are not willing to see in their own practices.
Couple of things. I think Robert Kaplan, together with a second co-author, updated his methodologies, which were related to measuring performance, right? And scorecards, essentially, right? As you're talking about energy, actually, something occurred to me that there is a continuum, and thank you, Isabella, for bringing Zen, but it's a continuum between energy we produce and consume, such as electricity, and human energy, which you consume in companies. So if you look holistically, the energy, let's call it equation, then we have to have savings on both. Productivity comes from savings on both the energy we consume in the manufacturing process and the human energy. So I don't know how much in your book you talk about that, but definitely cultural change and so on unleashes human energy.
Yeah. I think this is where a lot of the external tools don't talk about, because when we talk about raw materials, we talk about energy, water consumption. Inherently, it's the processes in the company that is consuming them. And in the book, I'm actually trying to bring readers back to the processes of the company, trying to understand what are the operating characteristics, and why is the process consuming that much. Or in fact, in a lot of companies, trying to create an awareness, what is the absolute minimum the process needs to consume? Because a lot of people don't even know what the minimum is, and therefore they set a target of 10% reduction. But what is 10% relative to the absolute minimum? A lot of people, because they don't have that visibility, so they set arbitrary targets. And for some people, that target might be very easy to achieve. But for other people, that target might be very, very difficult to achieve, especially if they're very close to the minimum.
And culture has to be used in order to share this target across the company, because it's not enough the CEO to say, oh, we have or the chief sustainability officer saying we have a target of 10%, if it's not shared and actually boiled down to KPIs to the first, second, third level of management. So that's a great and as we talk about that, the second question that begs, because in AKFI we're bridging the digital transformation with sustainability. How much digital transformation, not only as a technology but as a process of change, is reflected in your experience and maybe in your book?
Yeah, I think um, the knowledge on how to do sustainability is exactly the same, but with the digital transformation, access to that knowledge has actually become faster and faster. I mean, if we look at the modern day technology, we can get
Absolutely.
information. For energy, it might be every half hour we'll get the next information, and so our ability to actually respond to that information and to make the appropriate changes becomes uh, much quicker. I think on the other hand, what I've actually also seen is a lot of companies who have a lot of advanced um, information that is collected very expediently through, for example, smart metering and also through the data manipulation on computer, but they don't understand what the information is saying, which is a shame because it kind of tells me they've been sold a particular piece of product or services which they don't understand how to use. And but if we understand what is the problem, we can solve that problem.
This is partially the subject of Isabella's book, as she's trying to probe how AI and humans can work and, to some level live together. Right, Isabella?
Human, yeah, part of the discussion. And another thing Kit was talking about is what was the question? What was the problem? We need to ask the right questions in order to provide a solution. And it's interesting to hear that people, they get sold, but they don't know how to use the things that they get sold on. That's just
Perfect
interesting.
marketing, Isabella. Perfect marketing.
And I also see part of the thing, it's people are not related to this plan that they've been sold on. Like, how do we involve the people who are actually using the strategy, the solution that you provide? I see that as a big gap today everywhere, as Kit was saying. Yeah.
Yeah, a very big gap. I think for me, there are three divides. One is a leadership buy-in and the strategic alignment as one major challenge. The other is the management divide, because a lot of time management are keen to keep a lot of the system running on a status quo basis. Sometimes they forget the big picture, where the leadership of the company wants to go.
Right.
Yeah. And then we've got the technical and the technological divide, which I think we're all very good at. We know what is available, what is achievable. We just need to solve the leadership and the managerial issues to get the organization moving.
Absolutely.
In the sustainability classes at Cornell, is the same topic. You see about half of the people saying that sustainability has to start and has to be very strong on creating the right culture, on closing the cultural gap, which is typical in organizations between top and bottom. So, back to your initial mentioning that if the executive set a target of 10%, if it's not communicated and broken down in pieces, it's not effective, and is not going to be realized.
Yep, yep. And I think a lot of people also automatically assume that the drive has to start from the executives. But I think in a lot of companies that I see, it actually doesn't start from the top. Often it could start from the bottom, or sometimes one of the most effective way is to start at the middle and actually spread top and bottom. And I think in my personal experience, if we look at the three different modes of starting the sustainability agenda, uh, the probability of something that is started from the top, it's probably a tiny fraction. Most of the time, it's because individual middle managers or the people further down who are interested in the topic and wants to create that topic, that organizational focus, and they actually champion it on their own and spread it out horizontally and upwards and downwards, and then the whole organization picks up the initiatives and move forward.
But of course, and we're talking about energy, if it starts from the middle, the executives have to allocate the right amount of financial and human energy to the mix in order to be successful, because otherwise, and I've seen in my experience companies that set up like interest groups, if you want, ad hoc groups, and they hope that that will propagate somehow and becomes the corporate culture, and it doesn't, unfortunately. It stays there inside the closed circle, as you said, of middle management, good, good wishers, but no tools, or very few tools in hand.
Yeah, much limited, and usually a lot of it would go into the compliance part. But on many occasions, I've actually seen initiatives actually catching the eye of the chief executives or the
Right.
CFOs, and that is when magic starts to happen and it accelerates. I mean, in one of the companies that I've seen, it's a holiday company. The energy and the resource efficiency group now actually reports to the CEO with a direct ring fence funding, but they started pretty much on their own until they got the initial interest of the CEO, and the CEO brings them in.
And you mentioned something also important, because we identified three key drivers for sustainability change. One is initiative, from the middle or the top, but initiative inside the company. One is compliance, which is mandatory, it's legal, and companies have to figure out how they comply or take the risk of non-compliance. And the third one, actually, which is sort of a newer discovery to us, is the influence of the supply chain. So we have a project now in AKFI studying, for instance, Walmart and the impact on their long supply chain on sustainability requirements. Because if you want to be a provider to Walmart, you have to help them. This from outside in, right? Help them to achieve their sustainability goal, and they have a fairly detailed list of compliance. And these companies, these suppliers, have to comply. So on top of the compliance from governments and the industry, they have to comply also with their supply chain. So we're studying that.
It's certainly a very useful tool to push the people, the planet, and the profitability requirements through the supply chain. And I've personally have seen quite a lot of companies, but these are literally limited to just about 500 of the largest companies in the world who actually have the purchasing power to actually flex their supply chain to follow what they want. I mean, IKEA is a fantastic example. BMW is another one. And I'm sure a lot of the automotive, a lot of the aviation, and a lot of the supermarket supply chains
Consumer
are
goods.
working on the same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we identify PepsiCo, for instance, as a leader,
Hmm.
Walmart as a leader, and they have fairly clear rules for their supply chain, and sort of you comply, or we find another part of our chain, right? We find another supplier for us.
Yeah, I mean, certainly for IKEA, not only do they have the requirement placed on their supply chain, they actually go and audit uh, the chain as well, and that was kind of the interesting element for me, because not only is there a requirement, but there is actually a follow-up to check
Hmm.
in to verify, which some companies don't actually do.
No, of course. We have a spectrum. I'll have one more question before turning to Isabella for her part. Sorry, Isabella, for taking more time, but one
No,
important
no,
issue.
no. These are very useful insights. I love to hear it, brainwash my mind with these valuable data information. Because I think it somehow connects, if not now, some point later on. So really appreciate all these sharings.
And maybe we should invite Kit back to a discussion on Zen and sustainability, but we'll leave it for another day if we can.
Are you a Zen type of person, Kit? I didn't
Not
know.
really.
Yeah, but you behave like pretty calm and
I
very,
try to. I try to.
you try to.
He's a natural Zen person. You
Natural
know.
Zen. That's the real Zen.
The real Zen, it comes in. But bringing back the core issue of sustainability and the triple bottom line, the profitability. Again, a large number of companies see ESG and sustainability as a cost of doing business, i.e.,
Mhm.
non-profitable, reducing the profitability of the company. We have to do it because we are requesting the supply chain, blah, blah, blah. We have to comply with new regulations and so on.
Mm.
But there are not um, effective in implementing a sustainability process that it's actually also a profit center.
Mm.
I know one exception from one of the people, the senior executives. PepsiCo has
Mm.
profitability on the CSO. The CSO has the chief sustainability officer has a profitability target together with marketing, sales, and so on. Right.
Mm. Mm.
So it's very important for us to share your thoughts about how you do it right, how you.
Yeah, I think a lot of the companies, what they have um, is one single parameter, which is profitability, or the cash, specifically the short-term profits that they are measuring on. When it comes to sustainability, or when it comes to resource productivity, or even the social welfare issues, we kind of need to look at a much longer term than the short-term financial targets. And if you look at the longer term, there are actually a lot more levers that you could pull. I mean, this is why Robert Kaplan and David Norton talk about balanced scorecard, because it's supposed to be a series of performance indicators other than money that needs to be valued by the companies themselves. And if you invest in sustainability issues, the returns, it's not measured in today's profitability, but tomorrow's in the future. And that comes from whether your cost of capital goes down, whether you've got more people willing to work for you, or it might be you've got more contractors who's willing to work for you and go through the short-term pains and gains, obviously. And also it's the availability of customers, because customers, some of them actually see through the short-term issues and will invest and will commit to buying from companies if they see a committed long-term value. I mean, when I communicate to a lot of top managers, many of them will actually say to me personally that they value the long-term assurance, the long-term sustainability of the company, because that is how they are being measured at. And I think that shift needs to happen a little bit more expediently, and we need to maybe communicate the trade-offs between short-term and long-term success. I mean, in the UK, for example, there has been a change in the directors' duties according to law, and quite recently, I think just a couple of years ago, the American also have a similar change. And I would be very, very happy to watch out this space and see how American companies are catching up with the change in the duties of directors.
Fairly recent AKFI and many other providers of ESG ratings and so on received the request for industry input from the Security and Exchange Commission to make mandatory reporting on carbon dioxide emissions, on carbon emissions, and greenhouse gases emissions. So we contributed to that, and you're right, the change is coming and becomes one of this regulated reporting as part of financial reporting as well. So you're absolutely right, and also there are changes in the way, especially in Europe, I don't know if in the UK, where directors and especially executives are compensated over a longer term of period. So their options are not cashable immediately in a quarter or in a year. They are actually cashable over the long term, which forces them to think strategically, as you as indicated, about sustainability. But I don't want to take all the time, so I'm going to Isabella to help us continue the dialogue.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm always seeing the communication coming from two ways, the data, information, and also the brainstorm among this information. And I want to circle back quickly about you mentioned an interesting thing that I first time hear personally. It's that how middle management is actually the drive engine that brings up breakthrough initiatives and then eventually raise up to the higher management where people are expecting those initiatives should come from. And what's the reason for this thing? It's happening that the middle management are desire to do that, and where it should come from, but it didn't actually happen from there.
Yeah, I think the middle management actually holds a huge amount of power in companies, although they don't like to tell you that. Because if you think about what middle managers do, middle managers, they actually understand what top management are trying to achieve. Very often they are maybe the front of what the top management wants to achieve, and they are also very good at planning how to translate top management requirements into operational plans and distribute it down the whole organization. They also hold a lot of resources, both in terms of money. They are doing the budgets, allocation. They know where there are spare excess cash, where there are excess time available within the organization, and how to actually mobilize this excess
Mm-hmm.
resources if needed.
Mm.
So when it comes to a sustainability initiatives like water or energy, they would be able to identify where the potential opportunities are, what are the resources that they need, both in terms of time, in terms of information, and also people, because they are responsible for the budgets. If they want to bring
Hmm.
in additional people to help out, they can make it so without actually causing a major hoo-ha in the company. So, and if one manager is successful in implementing the tiny little initiatives, then they can actually share it with their horizontal colleagues. Hey, why don't you try this? It works for
Mm-hmm.
me. It might work for you as well. And the initiatives actually grow at the middle management level. And activities that are developed here will tend to catch top management's eye a lot quicker than if it's at the shop floor. That's why I say it's a lot easier to start from the middle. Now, another thing is middle management are also very good at office politics. They know what strings to pull, what strings not to pull. So they will be able to communicate across department and get cooperation much easier compared to people further down and also further up. So, I mean, for all of these collection of reasons and also information flows through them, it makes them the perfect place to actually grow any triple bottom line initiatives, which is why I say they've got a lot of power. It's just not being tapped for sustainability and the welfare purposes.
Nice. Thank you for sharing
Interesting.
all this. Well, very well said, and it's very clearly, presented in a way that make perfect sense to us. So, so to wrap this up, what's your thoughts? Obviously, we're going through this massive transformation. We're evolving from centralization to decentralized and fossil fuel-based system to net zero. And we have this digital energy system coming up. With everything combined, how do we navigate? What's your advice for every one of us in the field to manage this transition?
Firstly, don't stay stagnant. We find a lot of companies who remain still for a very long time, and this business world is a very dynamic one. So we have to learn to move on our and make decisions on our feet. And not many organizations actually have the flexibility and the
Mm,
advantage to actually start from scratch, which means in each organization we already have some knowledge and some tools and some activities that we're working on, and we
mm-hmm,
need to find out where we are and where we need to get to, and then create a plan. And that plan relies heavily on solving three internal company issues, which is the leadership alignment issue, the
mm-hmm.
management execution issue, and also the technical know-how. And uh, a lot of companies tend to focus outwards. Please
Right.
don't. Please look inwards, because
Please
a
don't.
lot of the answers is within the organizations, and it is true solving the internal issues where you would get someone outside maybe to help you on several of the items that needs to be solved. A lot of companies tend to go and look at one or two solutions outside, thinking that it will help them solve the people, the planet, and the profit issue. But until you actually figure out what are the internal issues, buying from outside is a little bit premature, because you don't know what you need until you do the internal reflection and decide where you want to go.
Such a life philosophy, even. It's not about organizations. For all of us as a person, we need to solve internally, right? What we want in order to seek sources from outside.
Yeah,
so when
exactly.
you're talking about literally reflecting on personal level as well. Yeah, so this is so true.
Yeah, and I think this is where I always draw analogies between the human body when I explain management to people I work with. And until you understand your body and what it wants, you can't just feed yourself with food, because it might not be food that your body wants. So in a similar analogy, until you actually define where you need to go and what are the things that you need to do and what are the steps, it is actually quite difficult to buy a piece of consultancy or a piece of product, because you don't know what it's going to do until you actually do that analysis.
Wonderful. Thank you for such a flow-based Zen conversation that, connect with the theory with the real case that explain us to us very detailedly. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
I can see a joint book, The Art of Zen in Sustainability.
That might be a very, very interesting book to read.
First,
Exactly.
I'm talking to recent and young authors, so I think that's a great time to talk about it. But want to thank you. So back to you, Isabella.
Yeah, thank you really for all these sharings. Very articulate, and I can see you really trying to solve the root cause of these organizational challenges, not just trying to, as you mentioned, get them a solution, but whether they can digest it, right? That's the first question. We need to be clear before taking actions. So, and also thank you to all our audience for tuning in today, taking this time, brainstorming with us. Make sure you tune in every week for a new episode of AKFI's Actionable ESG Talks Series. You will gain new perspectives on how to mitigate risks and create a value by integrating ESG digital transformation. So until the next one, goodbye for now. Bye everyone. Bye Kit.
Bye, Kit.
Bye.
Thank you, Isabella. See you soon.
See ya.